Hello and welcome to the DrFred cooking show. Today's going to be a little different. I think you know that I like to make things in one bowl, in one frying pan, in one casserole dish, because it's just the way I like to cook and it's the easiest way to cook, quite honestly. But today we're going to do something a little bit different. It's not more complicated. It's just from these ingredients, which is ground beef, ground pork, onion, garlic, Italian seasoning, salt, Parmesan cheese, and eggs, we're going to be able to make two different things out of this one meal. So we're either going to be making a meatloaf or we can make meatballs out of it. So you can choose either way, and I will show you the way of making just the base of it, and then I'll show you how to make how to shape it into a loaf, and then also how to shape them into little meatballs that you can either fry, you can bake, you can do whatever you want with those. And they're also great like the next day when you can cut them up and I always like to make a little meatball Parmesan, which is delicious, but there you go. So what we're gonna do, first thing, is open up. Now the meat is grass finished, which is very important. There's a big difference between grass finished and grass fed beef. Grass finished beef, oops, I'm gonna stab myself. Grass finished beef means that the cow has eaten nothing but grass its entire life. That's really important because grass fed cows can eat grass up until the last month of their lives, and then they can literally be fed anything in order to fatten them up to slaughter. So it's a big difference between grass fed and grass finished. So it's always worth it to go a little, because it's probably just $1 more a pound. So it's worthwhile. It really is a very big difference in what you get. And then pork, the same thing. This is pasture-raised pork, fed where it's supposed to be fed. So I clearly have no worries about that. You could choose. I always choose a higher fat content beef because it's more keto, it's more paleo, it's more A-list diet. And it also tends to keep everything moister. And that's also why you put the pork in as well, because the pork will balance this. And if you use turkey, and sometimes I will use turkey like I did in the zucchini lasagna, if you're using turkey for this, then you need to make sure you cook it less because the turkey will cook quicker and it'll be drier. So basically what I did, I just put the meat in here. I'm going to just wash off my hand real quick. I'm going to pour in this entire ramekin of herbs and spices, which I got from Sicily. This is the last of it. I'm really sad because they were so good. Then I'm gonna pour in some salt. And again, you can salt it to taste. You don't have to add salt. You can add salt, you don't have to, it's all good. I think I'll put in 2 eggs, maybe 3, because I don't want to leave this little sad guy here. So 2 or 3 eggs, and these are small eggs, therefore that's the only reason why I would consider putting in 3. You could certainly just use 2 if they're the larger versions, but because there's 2 pounds of meat here, I'm going to put in 3 because they're smaller eggs. So there you go, simple enough. Eggs are in, and then we're just going to pour in some cheese. The cheese actually acts like breadcrumbs. So instead of putting in breadcrumbs, which is what my parents would do, I use Parmesan cheese, because Parmesan cheese will act like breadcrumbs, and it'll bind the meat together with the eggs. I don't know how much I just put in. You kind of have to use it to eye. I may have to put a little bit more. I may have to do a little bit less, but in either way it works. So we're gonna get these out of the side, then we're gonna mince the onion. So mincing onion is kind of the same as anything else, but let me run off camera for a second and get my garbage bag so I'm not going from place to place, and the dog doesn't get to eat all the food on the floor, which he loves, but not good for him, especially raw onion. So you just peel the onion like you would normally peel it. This is the way I peel it. You don't have to do it that way. You're gonna go right down. I do it down in the middle, and then the way I learned to, what I will do, honestly, usually is throw this into a food processor because it's just quicker, and the actual cuts come out nicer, but you don't have to do that. You can just do this to slice an onion. It's basically almost something like you've seen on TV. I just slice it in half and then slice little narrow and then do it again this way so that they comes out almost minced this way. And then at the end, what I'll do is, well, I'll show you. I'll take another knife and I will, you have to just be really careful. Another way of doing this, stand by. Let me do that because these are a little bit too big. Let me get a bigger knife. So you get a bigger knife, which is really easy, and you just mince them more. And you could mince them, I'm mincing this on a cutting board. I think it's probably the easiest way. And by the time you go through this process and cut it open, peel it, I personally think it's easier just to put it in a food processor, but next time we'll do that. Food processors may sometimes be for sissies, when they're not necessary. No offense, Tate. Anyone, please? That was a joke. So, we're just going to keep mincing these because you don't want to bite into big chunks of onion, although I like it. I like the flavor, but not everyone does. So you just cut them in so that you're getting the flavor. Really quite simple. And then you just pour them into the bowl. We're going to pour all this into the bowl as such. That is probably enough onion, I would think, for all of this. But I'll probably do the other half off camera so you don't have to watch that exercise again. And then you want to take a few cloves of garlic. I tend to like garlic, so I tend to put lots of garlic in. You don't have to, obviously. You can use however you like it, really. And I'm having trouble with this. I don't know why. Probably because I'm trying to be neat for you guys. Usually I would have just ripped it open by now. So it has some semblance that I look like a TV cook and not just, some idiot in his kitchen doing this. But I like garlic, so I'm going to use it all. The problem with garlic is you get all the allicin all over your hands. That's what you're getting, the allicin. And that's what a lot of people, that's the smell of the garlic is also allicin. And it's where you get all the healing properties from garlic, is in the allicin. I mean, that's what people take when they're taking garlic for blood pressure. So it's always good to cook with these foods so that you're also getting them as part of your diet and not just for nutritional supplementation all the time. But, if that's all you can do is nutritional supplementation, then that's all that you can do. So now, how I do it really easily, everybody's got their own little way of doing this, is I just use a mallet and I will crush it open. And then the peel comes right off, so you're not doing another extra step. The peel comes right off. And then I will, before I put it in, I will bang them all around again so that they break into little pieces. I will probably also mince this as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the camera for a moment so you don't have to watch this process over and over again, and we'll be back when it's time to mix. Okay, I decided to spare you the agony of watching me mince onion and garlic, but basically there you go. That's what it looks like, minced onion, garlic, the meat is in there, the eggs, the spices, everything's in there. So basically, again, old school me is going to just use his hands to mix everything together. So it's like kneading dough if you've ever made bread, which I'm hoping a lot of you have stopped making. I guess you could also use almond flour in this. I've never tried it, but that would also take the place of the Parmesan cheese. So you could use the almond flour for that. I guess maybe coconut flour. I'm sure there's a whole variety of things that you can use as the binding agent. I'm still old school. You have to remember I've been doing keto, Atkins, low carb, paleo, A-list, Hamptons. I've been doing it for almost 3 decades. So we didn't have a lot of tools at our disposal when I was first starting to recreate recipes and making them more keto friendly. So this cutting board is making noise, so bear with me. And so I had to learn how to use simple ingredients like Parmesan instead of fancy almond flour or whatever other ingredients there might be out there now that are available as binding agents that the breadcrumbs would normally do. But I find no reason not to because it works. But feel free to get inventive, and if you find something that works as a better binder, by all means, email me and tell me all about it because I'd love to hear it. Always looking for new ideas, new suggestions. And so basically when it feels right to you, and by that, it's not falling apart, you know, you can shape it into a loaf. So this is me shaping it into a loaf. So there, now I put this in. Oh, I should have done this before we start the camera. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put that in a loaf pan. So I'm gonna wash my hands because they're all greasy now and filled with egg and cheese and all sorts of deliciousness that once it's cooked will be unbelievable. And then we're gonna get a pan from down here and use that. I think I'll use this pan. It's not so pretty, but you'll get the gist of it. And then what also we're gonna do is, or maybe I have a nicer pan in here. I don't know. For this. I'm thinking that pan will be just fine. And then so that's the meatloaf version. So what I'm gonna do is also get out my cast iron skillet, cast iron skillets, because that is going to be the way that you would make the mince meatballs. So I'm just gonna take this cast iron skillet out. So what I'm gonna now do is I'm going to take half of this off. So that's gonna be my meatballs for tomorrow, or whenever I decide to cook them, maybe later. Maybe a little bit more on that side. And then I'm gonna shape this into a nice little loaf. I'm gonna have preheated the oven to 350. I'm not gonna cook this just yet because I still have some work to do, some newsletters to write, some exercise to get done. So I prepared this simply for later. So what I'm gonna do though, before I put it in the pan, probably something that I should have done or told you to do, because now I have to wash my hands again, is what we're gonna do is put a little bit of macadamia nut oil on the bottom of the pan so that it doesn't stick. It should not stick because of the fat content of the pork so I'm just gonna dribble a little macadamia nut oil just on the bottom. So if you can see that, it's just really just on the bottom to coat the bottom of the pan. And then, oops, we don't need that. My dog will take a lick of that and be very happy with it. And so what I'm gonna do is take the loaf and I'm gonna just sort of spread the oil on the bottom with it and just let it sit there. I'm gonna put this in the refrigerator right now, and then later when I get home, when I get back home to cook it, I will take an after picture as well, after you can see it cook. And then in the meantime, what one can do, or what I'm gonna do for tomorrow, is I'm simply gonna take like a handful of the meat. Hope you can see that, just a handful of that. And then I'm gonna just make it into a ball. And that's meatballs. So that's I will put in macadamia nut oil and fry them up, but I'm not gonna show that to you today because I'm not gonna do that today. Okay, so the meatloaf has been in the oven at 375 for an hour. So I'm about to take it out and let's see what it looks like, because it smells delicious. Look at that. That is amazing. I'm so excited. I cannot wait to eat. I'm starving. I have to put the fan on, so you're gonna hear a little noise. And then that's it. And tomorrow we'll do the meatballs. Okay, now as I recall, I told you this is gonna be part 2 of that same meal. So take your nice cast iron skillet, pour a little bit of macadamia oil in there, and then you make the meatballs. So here's sort of the size. I'm hoping you can see that. That's sort of the size that I like. So what I generally tend to do, I'll turn on the gas or electric, whatever you have, and just sort of put it on a medium heat so that the oil gets nice and hot. And in the meantime, what you can do while you're waiting for that to heat is just make meatballs. And it's just really putting a bunch, a clump in your hand of that same mixture that we did to make that delicious meatloaf yesterday. And you just make them into little balls. I actually prefer to make them bigger than smaller. I don't know why. I just think they cook more evenly. When they're little, they can get really, they can dry out in the middle, and I don't like that. So you do that. Just grab these. The other thing that you can do, and the oil's hot when you could hear it crackle a little. You can actually, what sometimes I'll do is I'll take a little of the onion and throw it in there. It's not ready yet. The oil is not ready because if you don't put it in when the oil's ready, it'll stick to the bottom of the pan. We don't want that to happen. I think I'm hearing it sizzling. Not quite. We'll continue making the balls. Hear that sizzle? It's so good and it smells so good because macadamia nut oil is a really great oil for cooking with high heat because it stands up to 450 degrees of smoke point. And avocado oil does about 500 degrees of smoke point, so that's also quite good. But you never want to use anything like canola oil or even olive oil for cooking. I mean, most other oils other than avocado oil and macadamia nut oil are really unsuitable for high heat. So that sounds about right. So I'm just going to put them in and let them do their thing. It's really quite simple. I think while these are cooking, I'm going to take this shirt off because I don't want any of the oil to splatter onto this shirt. So there you go, they're cooking. Let me just wash my hands off real quick, and then I will show you what the finished meatball looks like. I will lift the plate up, not sure if you can see them, but what I'm gonna do is remove them because they are ready. So the beauty of this is that 2 different meals, same ingredients, and you can make it ahead of time like I did, and you can it's just because, and the reason why it's 2 different meals and they have 2 different flavors is that one, the meatloaf was baked and the meatballs are obviously fried. You could bake them as well. You could I like to make a nice red pepper sauce for them, which I am not doing. If I do, I'm not doing it on camera right now. And there's a whole bunch of ways you can do this. Like I said, you can make it into a Parmesan. You could, if you're not following low carb, this is a great way to prepare them before they go into a great pasta sauce. But what's better than that? Same ingredients, 2 different meals that taste differently. And that's why cooking is easy. And thank you for tuning in to Cooking with DrFred.